Good afternoon, hello, and welcome to this afternoon's book reading, Red Car Long Legs, Adventures in California and Beyond. So we'll wait for a few more people to join us this afternoon. Hello and welcome. I see we have someone who's just joined us. Please let me know who you are by putting your name in the comment box. Welcome to this afternoon's book reading. We're going to wait for 2 minutes or so more people can join us this afternoon. It's sunny outside but really hot, so I'm glad to be in here with the air conditioning this afternoon. Just 2 more minutes. Oh, hi, KWY Bonafide. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well this afternoon. It's so hot outside, I thought I would melt. So I just felt really glad to be inside with the air conditioning. How is everything today? So we'll wait 1 minute and then get started. I have these little songs in my head all the time. All right, let's get started. Thank you and welcome for coming out. Welcome to you for coming out this afternoon. This is actually the last in the series of book readings because, you know, it's summer and everybody wants to be outside. So we have read from all my memoirs twice. So Red Car Long Legs, this will be the second reading in different passages from Red Car Long Legs. So what I like to do is introduce all my memoirs before starting the book reading. So the first memoir I wrote was Escape from Ireland, and this talks about life as a newcomer in Ireland. I lived there from 2004 to 2010. And the book has all the adventures and misadventures of being a newcomer in Ireland. Then I wrote Goodbye Frying Pan, Hello Fire. And this book talks about what it was like as a newcomer to Toronto, especially the first 2 years trying to settle in Toronto. And we read twice from this book. You can find all the book readings on my YouTube channel, Jennylynd James. Another favorite, Derive or Drive as Trinidadians would say. This is a collection of stories which tell what it was like going back to Trinidad and Tobago, my country of birth, and what it felt like on different occasions, weddings, funerals, carnival. So Drive, a Trini expat comes home. Then this memoir, Where Are My Car Keys? A Mother's Journey with Alzheimer's Disease. This talks about my family's journey as my mother went through Alzheimer's disease and what we observed and how we reacted to her slow demise. It was over a 12-year period when she suffered from Alzheimer's disease. Along with this book, we have the children's companion book, Is That My Granny? And it talks about Alzheimer's disease as seen through the eyes of my nephews. So what children would see when a grandparent or great-grandparent is suffering from Alzheimer's disease. I'm very excited to announce the upcoming novel. This is my first novel, first fiction, Mrs. Somebody, What She Did for That Ring. So in 2 weeks' time, we will have book readings from Mrs. Somebody. So I'm working feverishly on the edits for this new book, and I hope everyone will join us on Sunday, 9th of August for Mrs. Somebody, What She Did for That Ring. Now, today we're going to read from Redcar Longlegs, Adventures in California and Beyond. And I lived in California for about 6 years. I worked in the fresh fruit and vegetable industry. It was a very exciting time in my life. So the book talks about life in Southern California and then having to travel constantly for work, mostly to Central America and South America. So we're going to get started. Welcome, who has joined me now. I'm seeing another face there. Welcome. Okay, so now I'll read the introduction to Redcar Longlegs. When my postdoctoral research fellowship at a university in Tallahassee, Florida had run out, I managed to get a managerial position at a fresh fruit and vegetable company based in Oxnard, California. I was recently divorced with a toddler and determined to start a successful industry career. Moving to California provided unique challenges such as first-time home ownership and learning Spanish to communicate with staff. My responsibilities took me to Mexico and throughout the United States, participating in industry conferences and auditing growers for the company. This exciting career was punctuated by the search to find love, with many episodes of dating. Romance in California, however, proved as fleeting as the population that ebbed and flowed. Joining an organization for single parents helped me to find new friends and people with whom to socialize. It was a materialistic society with many hoping to become famous in Hollywood. A person's worth was evaluated by his zip code and the type of car he drove. I bought into the hype and moved to Westlake Village, California. As my skills increased, I moved on to a more senior role at a multinational company. I enjoyed the corporate company culture of private aircraft travel to remote locations in Central and South America. And I ate my way all around Latin America, experimenting with exotic dishes. Eventually, disenchantment with the system and the money-oriented society set in. I became restless with the inability to find a suitable life partner. It made me question whether the grass was greener in another land. I decided to look for work experience in Europe with the hope of finding a solid culture with real people. This quest set the stage for a new life's adventure. So, that's the introduction. Just saying, I worked in Florida. I was at Florida A&M University. And then when that contract ran out, I had to find a new job. So I was lucky to find a very good position in Southern California. And so the story went. Now, when I moved to California, I bought a house right away. Or at least I got a mortgage right away. And I couldn't furnish the home. So let me tell you what happened. Let me tell you that story. The story of the first-time home buyer. Getting used to the many bills that came with home ownership was difficult. In addition to the mortgage, I had to pay mortgage insurance for not putting down a 20% deposit. Since I lived in a gated community, $300 went to homeowners association dues, which were paid monthly. The gardens and pools were certainly beautifully maintained daily by Mexican gardeners. They watered, pruned, trimmed, cut the grass, cleaned, did all that was needed to make our complex called California Lighthouse look beautiful. I also had to pay for electricity, water, garbage collection, telephone, car note, car insurance. I didn't dare add any more bills to the list and decided to live without home insurance and cable television. In addition, cell phones were new at that time. So that was 1999. And I wasn't going to get another expense, so I didn't get a cell phone. The company gave me a pager. Everybody who traveled had a pager in 1999, and that was it. No cell phones. Can you imagine? Now in 2020, who would have thought that people couldn't exist without cell phones? But I did, and I traveled for work constantly. At the end of each month, I had to write many checks and mail out the envelopes with a stamp so they would arrive before the due date. Such were the joys of home ownership in the 1990s. Checkbooks were always used and reordered frequently. My esteemed friend and real estate agent told me that I would be able to get paintings, antiques, and unique decorations to furnish my whole house by going to a Friday evening auction. It took place in a warehouse in North Oxnard. I had assumed that auctions were for snobbish, wealthy people. But this one was different. It was a casual event run by Kathy and Mom. Previewing took place from 5 to 7 on Thursday evenings, and that was the time when potential buyers could rummage through miscellaneous boxes, review furniture, and size up all the items on offer, and plan ahead for the Friday night bidding. The warehouse was dingy with rows of old tables, onto which objects were placed with brief descriptions. The auctioneers would empty estate homes each week and be responsible for selling the contents, and they took 10% on top of the sales price. This was something I had to remember when I started bidding, the extra 10%. It was an auction for ordinary people, and nobody wanted to pay too much for anything. I needed table lamps for all the rooms. In newly constructed condominiums and townhouses like the townhouse I bought, there were no ceiling lights in the bedrooms, so I needed table lamps. With so many beautiful walls, I needed paintings and decorations. And at the auction, they had original paintings. I had to furnish my room and furnish my daughter's room and decorate it too. All I had was mattresses. The auction game began, and I went every Thursday to preview and find treasures for the home. Items changed every week depending on the house or estate that was being auctioned. Sometimes the goods were beautiful, sometimes they were not. One had to return every week to find new options. My first Thursday, I approached the warehouse nervously. It was on Wagon Wheel Road, a quiet slip road in the north of Oxnard, just off Highway 101. The old Wagon Wheel Motel, a bunch of ramshackle wooden buildings dating back to the 1950s, and a few other buildings were situated along the roadway. The motel had a giant neon sign that included an animated stagecoach driver and galloping horses. It was near the shopping center. This road also had an old roller skating rink and a bowling alley. So from the description, you could tell it wasn't a nice side of town. So that's why I was a little nervous going there. I wondered if it was safe, but many other people came to preview. The tables were full of bric-a-brac and small lamps. The regulars said they were going to reserve, they would put a reserve price on everything. So I had to ask, what is a reserve price? The woman I asked, she knew I was a novice and helped me along with more information. Reserve is the minimum price an item could sell for. The seller would not accept a bid any lower than that. I spotted 3 solid wooden chests of drawers that would be ideal for my little girl's bedroom. If I could paint them, I would create a ballerina-themed room for her. The plan had begun to take shape in my head when I spotted a framed print with ballet shoes. I walked around the warehouse looking at paintings, old books, even an old pop-up doll book. So many treasures, so little time. Now, how many here have been to an auction before? How many people listening in have been to an auction? Tell me in the chat box. Anybody? Tell me in the chat box if you've been to an auction. Nobody. Okay, so I'll tell you about the first day when I went. Kathy, the auctioneer, was assisted by her mother, who she called Mom loudly throughout the evening. Kathy had short dark hair, wore a t-shirt and track pants, and spoke faster than anything I'd ever heard. This is a beautiful set of crystal glasses. It's Waterford crystal. Come on, do I hear $10? Open bid. $10. Beautiful for entertaining. Do I hear 15? 15. There it is. 15. I see a hand up in the back. Do I hear 20? People raised their cards when they placed a bid, and everyone had a number. I was too shy to raise my bidding card. I wanted to see what the other people would do. After observing a few winners, I decided to risk a bid on a box of books and miscellaneous items. I had not even looked at the box, but since the bidding was low for this item, there was no harm in taking a chance. I raised my card. I had number 26, and I bid $5 on the box. Kathy then said, $10, $10, do I hear $10? Do I hear $10? Over here, $10. No cards went up. She challenged the crowd again. Then she said, yes, sold to number 26. Yippee! I had won a box of Lord knows what. I was exhilarated to be a winner. Kathy and Mom provided a great deal of entertainment during that night. So you'll have to read Red Car Long Legs to find out what I won in my first auction. Yes, and it was quite exciting. And I managed to finish quite a few rooms and get lots of decorations for my first home. Going to that little auction every Friday night. Entertainment galore and lots of strange characters from the small town. Now, since I moved from Florida to California, I had to get a California driver's license, and I also had to change the license plate on my car. And there was a time limit, and I had been dodging the police, when I knew the time limit for the car license plate had to be changed, but I was kind of waiting a few months. Then I decided, okay, I had to do that, and I had to get the California driver's license. So let me tell you what happened then. A section called California driver's license. Since I had moved to California from Florida on January 1st, I was driving around with my Florida license plate on my red Mitsubishi Eclipse with the sunroof, as well as driving with a Florida driver's license. I tried to see how long I could get away with it while dodging police cars as they spied my red car. The thought of spending the extra cash on car registrations and other non-essentials had me hemming and hawing. I decided if the police stopped me, I could always pretend that I didn't know the details of the law. Unfortunately, red sporty cars always attracted unnecessary attention. And one day I was stopped by a cruising police officer. "Ma'am, you are driving with a Florida license plate. Do you live in town?" "Yes, I do. Just moved here 2 weeks ago." I winced as I tried to contrive a plausible story, feigning ignorance when he asked where I lived. "Ma'am, you need to change your license plate as soon as possible and get California driver's license plate." I was like, "Really? I wasn't sure I had to do this so soon." "Yes," he said. "And if we see this Florida license plate again, you get a fine." So that's the magic word, a fine. We don't want to get fines. Hello, Magda. Good to see you today. So now I'm going to tell you what happened. Those were the magic words, get a fine. It was better to swiftly get the plates changed than to spend money paying fines. When I explained the situation to colleagues at work, they told me I needed to pass the fuel emissions test to get the California license plate. Pollution levels were a serious issue in the state, and they had special rules. Not everyone could show up and just get a license plate. One colleague recommended getting an oil change as soon as possible and having a pre-screening fuel emissions test done before going to the Department of Motor Vehicles. I had 1 day to do everything and my brain was in a whirl. Fortunately, places remained open late in the area and I was able to get the oil change and spark plugs replaced at a garage in town. I had purchased my brand new car in Florida in '97, so 2 years later I didn't think there would be any problem with fuel emissions. That would surely only apply for old gas guzzlers, I thought. I got a letter of temporary approval because my car was approved. The driver's license was the next step. I filled out a DL-44 form, giving a thumbprint and having my photo taken. I had to verify birth date and proof of residence, which was my home purchase information. After paying the fee, I had to pass a vision exam and then set up an appointment for the test on California traffic laws and signs. The test had 36 questions and one had 3 chances to pass. It seemed simple enough. I received a copy of the road signs and other rules for driving. Scanning the document briefly, I imagined everything looked familiar to me, and I booked my appointment right away during my lunch break the following day. When I returned the next day, I settled to take the test on the computer. As one question after another flew in front of me on the screen, I discovered that some of the multiple choice questions were tricky. In addition, I couldn't remember what I had seen in Florida and what was new in California. I was guessing one question after the other, and the future looked bleak. "Stand over there and wait for the results," said the attendant when I had finished. I looked around at the crowd with a smirk on my face. Lots of Mexicans. They probably didn't even understand the questions the way that I did. Look at that one. He probably just crossed the border. Ha! In 10 minutes, the attendant called us one by one. Mr. Mexican passed and went over to receive his temporary permit. The laminated version was going to be sent in the mail. Jennylynd James. She mispronounced my name. Why did everybody have to mispronounce my name, I thought. As I came to the counter with confidence, She said, "You did not pass. You can allow 2 weeks before booking an appointment for the retest." What? Is there some mistake? But I've been driving at least 15 years, I told her. I knew I hadn't studied, but this was so humiliating. Even Mr. Mexican passed the test. I hung my head down in shame and said, "Okay, I'll call to make an appointment." So what you all think about that? I went in for the test extra confident, never studied. I looked at the others around and thought, oh, they certainly don't know as much as I do. And I didn't pass the test. Tell me, what do you, oh yes, terrible thought, Miss James. Exactly. Exactly. I had to study. How many people here have taken driver's tests for driver's permits in different countries? Put it in the chat box. Let me see. I know I had to take a test for Trinidad, first of all, driving on the left side of the road, wheel on the right. Moved to the US. I had to take the exam again. In Florida, I had to do the written test. Came up to school in Quebec. I had to do the test again in Montreal. Moved to Ireland. I had to do the test again. Right, so I've taken that driver's license test. Even in Toronto, I had to do the test again because they wouldn't accept my Irish driver's license. So I've done the written and the road test many, many times. That's a book all by itself. Can you imagine? Anybody else has any story, any horror story to tell about taking the driving test? Put it in the chat box. Any of the listeners? Magda, if you're still there. Anyway, now I'm going to tell you a little bit about what happened after. Now I had moved. Okay, KWI Bonify. You took the test in the UK. Okay. Did you have a similar story to mine? Yes, so when I moved to California in January 1999, sorry. My daughter was staying with my mom in Trinidad so that I could get a place to live and get settled, get daycare, and then bring us. So I'm going to read what happened 6 months later when my mom brought her. Whereas Magda said, yes, 15 years ago in England. Oh yes, that's what happens when you change countries, and the whole driving story. As June approached, I looked forward to the return of my little girl. She had been lovingly cared for by Granny in Trinidad, and I had prepared her room and a welcome party. I had found a matching wooden headboard to complete the bedroom set. I sanded the furniture and also varnished it and put on pink ballerina shoes and tiny bunches of yellow flowers and blue bows. So I did my DIY furniture decoration. That evening, I went to the airport to meet Tiffany. Those were the days when security was relaxed and one could go all the way to the exit gate of the plane, whether traveling or not, to collect friends and relatives. Can you imagine? Now we don't have that luxury. I was waiting at the door of the plane in anticipation of my cute child and my mother as they emerged from the plane. It seemed like an eternity as people filed out, and I waited and waited. They must have been the last ones to leave. Tiffany hopped and skipped down the walkway, hopping towards me. Then she hopped way past me. "I'm going to meet my mommy in California," she said. I took photographs and she smiled at me. She didn't know me. when my daughter joined me in California. She was 3.5 years old. At that time, slim child, large brown eyes, long eyelashes, curly brown hair, so cute. But she didn't know me. "I'm going to meet my mommy in California," she said again. My child did not even know who I was. My heart dropped for that one split second. How could I let her know how much I loved her? How I sacrificed to pave the way for her smooth arrival and settling in California. "I am your mommy," I said. "Look at me. I love you." As tears of joy rolled down my face, I hugged her and gave her many, many kisses on her cheeks. Then hugged my mother too and thanked her for taking such good care of my bundle of joy and bringing her to me in California. I promised her she would always be with her mommy from then on, through thick and thin, no matter where I had to move. She hugged her beloved mother, whom she had come to see in California. So what do you all think about that? She didn't know who I was, and I was waiting there. She told everybody apparently on the plane that she was going to see her mommy in California, and hopped and skipped. She told me too as she left the plane, and then she walked past me to tell other people that she was going to see her mommy in California. It was a happy moment, but kind of bittersweet. But anyway, the day after that, we had a big party to celebrate, and it was a joyous reunion. Okay, hi, Mrs. Birch. Yes, you have to. You just joined us. Okay, well, thank you for coming in to the book reading. Now, I'm going to tell you about some fun times and dating in California. So I had found a babysitter who would watch Tiffany for me after school, after preschool. And then if I wanted to go out too on weekends, she would watch Tiffany. So I'll tell you what happened one time when I went on a date. One weekend, I went off to a late evening date to meet Terry, who lived in Newbury Park. We had met once at a bar in Oxnard, and there was a bit of chemistry on both sides. He invited me to his place for a barbecue. Against my better judgment, I agreed to go, deciding to have my car keys ready in case there was any monkey business. Explaining my date to the babysitter, Miss Cheryl, who was a God-fearing woman, was difficult. She would never understand the concept of internet dating and unknown people. Blasphemy against the Lord. "Where are you going?" she asked when I dropped Tiffany off. "Who are you going with? What time will you be back?" As a grown woman in my 30s, I felt like a guilty teenager playing hooky from school. Holy people may have felt women with children should not go on a date. I had to hide my story from her at all costs. When I was able to peel myself away from the interrogation, I made my way south on Highway 101 and over the hill to Newbury Park. Terry had given me directions to his house. When I got there, he had the tiniest grill set up in the dirt next to the driveway with a few coals set in it. He was trying to get the coals started. Was this what the man called a barbecue? He was stooping over the grill in the dirt when I showed up, wearing my cutest casual party outfit in my red sports car. I had to take a deep breath, calm down, and keep an open mind. Our conversations were cordial on the phone during the week, so he may have been a good man. Terry was tall and muscular. He had a neat mustache and a nice crop of brown hair. I could see myself possibly having a relationship with him, but would have to overlook the primitive barbecue. "Great to see you, Lindy. Thanks for coming over," he said. "Great to see you too," I said, as I surveyed the yard, the house, his car, his body, and everything else in one quick swoop. The sun had started to set, so I had to get a good view of everything before it got dark. "So how was your week?" I asked. "Well, same as usual, hard work and glad for the weekend," he answered. I listened to his conversation as we entered the kitchen. "Would you like a beer?" he asked. "Sorry, I don't drink beer." "Do you have soda?" I asked. "No, I don't," he said. "Well, water is fine for me." He opened the tap and filled a glass up with tap water. "Cheers," I said nervously as he held up his bottle of beer. Terry gave me a tour of his little bungalow. It was a basic 2-bedroom concrete home that was certainly in need of a paint job. He spoke about his divorce and putting money away to start his life over again. That's good," I said, and listened attentively. "This is the living room, this is the bathroom, I have an extra bedroom, and this is the main bedroom." As I looked around the little house, I decided it was basic but neat. Could I see myself in the little bed in his main bedroom? I didn't think so. Terry didn't have much furniture, and what little he had was used, functional gear. It was definitely a bachelor's home. He then decided it was time to start the barbecue grill. "Are you hungry?" he asked. "Sure, let me see if you need any help." I was quite curious to see what was on the menu. "We're having steak and potatoes," he boasted. "Yeah, steak, sure." I lied. I never ate beef, and sometimes I found it hard to digest. I would have to eat it because there was no choice. I should have known. What else would a bachelor cook? I watched as he played with a tiny grill on the gravel in the front yard. He didn't use a table or anything to lift it off the ground. There we were, stooping on the ground over the little grill. I felt like I was camping in the forest, but it was his front yard. He stuck some more coals on the tiny gadget and tried to light them. So primitive, I thought. Keep an open mind. He took 2 huge slabs of beef steaks out of the refrigerator, slapped them onto the grill when the coals were lit. There was no seasoning, no marinating, and no tenderizing. It was from the fridge to the grill, in good caveman fashion. The steaks were removed rare from the grill. "Hey Terry, would you mind cooking my steak a little bit longer?" I asked, as I stood observing the scene. I didn't want to see any blood. "No problem, buddy," he said. I'm sure he and his buddies ate steak and drank beer on Saturday night, but I was a fine lady and I deserved more than the buddy offering. Despite my open-mindedness, I couldn't see myself fitting into Terry's world. We sat at the countertop in the kitchen with our steaks, some sauce, and the potatoes that were baked in the oven. Good," I said, observing how he attacked his rare steak with relish as I played with mine, cutting it into smaller and smaller and smaller cubes. Anyway, to find out what happened next, you need to get your copy of Red Car Long Legs, Adventures in California and Beyond. Yeah, when you said Terry, oh yes, he ate his bloody steak in front of me with relish. I couldn't. But I was one of the buddies in that at that time, I think. But anyway, you could find out more. I have many zany and crazy dating stories in this book. You're going to have to get a copy, JennylyndJames.com books, or you can get ebooks on Amazon. If you have Kindle, you can also download for free and read for free if you belong to the Kindle Owners Lending Library. All right. KW1, oh yes, a rare steak. Yes, it was. No seasoning or anything. Caveman style. Now, I'm going to tell you about one segment of the population and what they thought about marrying, getting married. And this segment is called Marry Well. I was under the impression that the people of California were modern thinking and well ahead of the rest of the country in all social beliefs. It was true. Many new religions, new food trends, and new businesses started in California. The state had a wonderful atmosphere for nurturing entrepreneurs. Some of the highest divorce rates were also noted in California. I wondered what this meant for a single mother like me at the time to settle and work there. In my mind, the average person in the population should have been used to single parents and independent women. However, I discovered pockets of traditional societies like where I lived. Some pockets in society were fixed on the traditional family structure and frowned upon anything that was out of the ordinary. You have to marry well, I heard one woman say at the office as she trudged through her boring 9-to-5 responsibilities of shuffling papers, taking calls from complaining customers. What do you mean? What's marry well? I asked, a bit bewildered by the statement. Look at me, she said. I wouldn't be here if I'd married well. Find a man with money. I'm telling my daughters to marry well so they don't have to work, she confirmed. I was shocked. I was taught to study hard, go to university, find a good career, and that's how I was raised, growing up in the Caribbean. You were to go to the best high school, go to the best university, and become the best career woman. However, I was living in the United States in the 21st century, listening to someone talking about marrying well and staying at home. I could hardly believe my ears. It was evident she didn't want to work. Was there something bad or unsavory about working? Was she being lazy? I tried not to judge, but found her job quite easy, even if it was boring. What important things would she be doing if she wasn't working? Would she have a daily purpose in life, or did she not have to get dressed every day and she didn't want to come to an office every day? How would she save the world? If you have to marry well, she said again, you have to marry well. Her head hung low and she continued her drudgery. It never occurred to her that if she went back to school and got some additional education, she could earn more money without marrying well. So what do you all think about that? Somebody put a comment in the box. Have you ever heard the term marry well so you don't have to work? Anybody? Any of the listeners? Yes, the area where we lived in Southern California, there were many people like this. Many had married well, and I'm going to read a passage about some wealthy ones, a group that I tried to join. Church moms, I call this section. And I'll tell you what happened when I joined the Moms Club at a new church in Westlake, California. When we moved to the new neighborhood, I decided to go to an Episcopal church in Agora Hills, which was closer to my neighborhood. After a few Sunday masses, I wondered how I could make new friends in the area. People left promptly after mass saying a quick hello to the priest, who shook everybody's hands. One Sunday I stopped and I told the priest that I was new in the neighborhood and wanted to make friends. Being a thoughtful man, he paused for a moment. He looked at Tiffany and me and then suggested I meet with the Moms Club. Apparently they met once a fortnight at various homes in the neighborhood. He felt it would be good for me to bond with other moms. I jumped at this idea and he gave me the name and number of the coordinator of events. No children were allowed because the mothers were supposed to have a night off. I called the organizer, took directions for the meeting the following week at Sally's house, and off I went. We just had to bring a snack and get ready for lots of conversation. I had to travel overseas early in the week, but I was free on that Friday evening for their meeting. As I rang the doorbell at Sally's house, I wondered if I had made the right decision to go there. I could hear a tiny dog barking and running around near the front door. That's okay, I heard a woman's voice say as she approached the door. Hello, I'm Marge, she said as she opened the door and looked at me from head to toe. I had a lump in my throat but got the courage to speak up. Hi, I'm Lindy. I'm here for the Moms Club. I feigned a smile of courage and held out my hand for a handshake. I had been so used to greeting people in a formal business setting with a handshake that I couldn't get away from this. Come on in, she said with a friendly smile. Come right this way. A few of the girls are here already. We entered a spacious hallway with plants, and Marge led me to a large sitting room which was off to one side. 5 of the ladies were gathered there yapping away. Marge introduced me, and in a whirlwind I heard everyone's names. Don't worry, we're going to do this once everybody's here. After chatting with the ladies, it appeared most had young or elementary school aged children. So we had some of the same experiences in child rearing. When everyone arrived, at least 15 women were at the gathering. One of the organizers said we had to get together one day at the park. I usually take Johnny to the park at 11 on mornings, she announced. Well, I'll join you over there, said another one. I knew I had to be in the office at that time, so I kept quiet. Most of the mothers didn't work and were available at a moment's notice to go to parks and other places during the day. Let's do something for ourselves without children, said one woman. Yes, that's right, said another. Let's go scrapbooking. I wondered what scrapbooking was and I listened attentively. There's a new place on Ladero Canyon Road offering scrapbooking. They have all the materials. You just have to pay and go in with your stuff to assemble, said one mom. Okay, chimed in another one. Oh, and if you have any talent at all, just don't bother to come, she said, laughing hysterically, while the others chimed in laughter. I didn't find anything funny about her statement. It confirmed to me the fact that some women felt worthless, even to the point of putting together creative scrapbooks. I used to make scrapbooks to preserve memories of trips abroad or business trips. What was this woman speaking about when she said people with talent should not come? I was too talented and uptight to hang out with them. I was pulled out of my daydream when one woman asked what I did all day. I told her I worked for a large corporation and I traveled frequently to Latin America on business. She looked at me with pity and said, I feel so sorry for women like you who have to work. What? I asked, completely baffled by her pity. You feel sorry for me? She confirmed, yes. I used to work at a bank. I couldn't imagine having to get up every day and work. Now I have a kid to take care of. My husband pays for everything, so I don't have to bother. Now, listeners, What do you think about that? The Moms Club. Do you think I stayed in the Moms Club? Put in the comment box what you think about the Moms Club. Anybody? Well, believe it or not, there are pockets of places in California where women think like this. And it was quite a shock for me, because I just thought everybody was career-minded like I was. But it was not true. Now I'm going to tell you about some adventures that I had while traveling around Latin America. When I worked for Dole, I would be sent to Costa Rica, Honduras, different places in Central and South America. And sometimes instead of driving by road, it was shorter to take the company's little jet. So Dole had several little ones that would take people to different parts of the country, and it was just faster to get to and from work that way. So I'm going to just tell you about one instance where we flew from San Jose, California, San Jose in Costa Rica, to the tropical side of Costa Rica. As soon as we fastened our seatbelts, we took off. As we climbed into the sky, the constant din of the propellers was apparent. It would not be a silent ride like a big aircraft. However, we would only be airborne for 20 minutes. I noticed that we flew closer to the ground than the typical big plane. I could see all the cars and the roadways. We then hovered over more rural areas outside the city of San Jose. The most spectacular sight was the many tall mountains and dormant volcanoes that dotted the landscape. Rodolfo, who was a manager based in San Jose, pointed out some of the major sights on the way, and I reacted with loud cheers. Within 15 minutes, we started our descent. Down and down we went at what appeared to be breakneck speed. As I looked below us, all I could see was a wide expanse of green. Where was El Capitan taking us? I didn't see any place to land. We were going to land on the treetops? Was that it? This must have been in the middle of a plantation. I started to panic, and I tried taking deep breaths. The man must have known what he was doing. Why was I panicking? Feeling a little sick because the descent was rapid, I tried hard to see if I could find a landing strip. We were going down and down and down. We were coming close to the trees, and then all I saw was more and more green. I decided to cover my eyes to spare myself the agony. "Jennylynd, why are you covering your eyes?" asked Rodolfo. I shouted, I can't look. He's going to get us killed. I can't see where we are going to land." Before I could say another word, we hit the ground, moving forward on a dirt landing strip. I knew we were still alive, and only then I could exhale and unblock my face. Rodolfo was looking at me, the mad woman, and I was defending my actions. "Well, it's the first time in a small jet. What do you expect?" I wiped the sweat from my brow and looked around. We had landed on a small dirt track cleared in the middle of a massive banana plantation. We were surrounded by thousands of trees, and it was intimidating. I thanked El Capitan profusely for bringing us to safety, and I asked him to pose with me for a photo next to the jet. So those of you on Facebook, you may have seen the photograph of me with El Capitan next to the plane. first time in a small jet, I was terrified. How many people put in the chat box, how many of you have flown on a small jet, especially in the jungle? Anybody? Any of the listeners? I tell you, it was a frightening experience, the first experience anyway. In fact, most of the experiences, I had just a bit of nervousness even after that, especially when we were in windy locations. That happened a lot flying around Central America. Let me just take a sip of water. And put in the chat box if you've had any experience driving in those little 3-seater jets. Right. Now let me see. I can read another. Let me tell you a story about one time when I went to visit the banana plantations in Honduras. Because Dole had operations in Honduras, Costa Rica, Ecuador, Peru. That's where they grew the bananas and pineapples. So I had to go and visit the plantations, look at their food safety and quality assurance programs. So one time they sent me to Honduras. I had to return to Honduras to visit company farms and pack houses on the Caribbean coast. The trip was going to involve a series of layovers and changing planes to get to the town of La Ceiba on the coast. When I looked at the convoluted journey, I was happy to have 4 days locally to recover before flying out again. I flew from Los Angeles to Tegucigalpa, then from there a local plane to San Pedro de Sula, which was north, and then from San Pedro de Sula to La Ceiba. In San Pedro de Sula, I was surrounded only by locals. There were few, if any, tourists in this part of the country. The local flights were filled with business people and traders flying around the country. Wearing modest clothes, I tried to blend in. The Honduran population was cosmopolitan in some areas, so it should not have been obvious that I was visiting from America. I always tried to hide in case anyone had an unfriendly bias against American business people. The last leg of the journey was on an Airbus from San Pedro de Sula to La Ceiba. I wondered why the travel agent referred to the flight as an Airbus, but I thought nothing of it. We boarded a small plane with a big belly in midday sun. It was hot and humid that day, and everybody was perspiring since the little airport had no air conditioning. The Airbus was also hot. I fastened my seatbelt and waited to be airborne so the craft would cool down. Nobody was strict about overloading like in North America. Passengers had brought everything they possibly could on board. As we lifted off, the little plane groaned and rattled. I looked at my neighbor, who sat calmly, pulled his cap over his face, leaned back to get a nap, and that was it. How could anyone sleep in that heat? The Airbus rattled and rattled. There was no cool air. In fact, it got hotter, and we flew lower than one would expect for a plane. I could see treetops. Surely this was too low. It reminded me of old newscasts of planes carrying soldiers at war. Soldiers who would jump out with a parachute. The other passengers were comfortable, and I tried to focus and think happy thoughts. With every rattle, I thought the sides of the jet and the doors would fall off, or we would crash. I held onto the arms of my chair, closed my eyes, and prayed for myself, my child in California, my family, and for everybody. In the middle of the prayer, we started our descent. I couldn't wait to walk on the ground again. It was the longest 20-minute flight of my life. As we touched down, every inch of the plane rattled noisily. Passengers grabbed their belongings from under the seats or overhead compartments and made a mad dash across the tarmac for the small terminal. Thankfully, my suitcase came and I rushed out of the small concrete terminal to see who was collecting me. Sure enough, I saw a stout fellow holding my name card. "Hola, Jennylynd," he said. "Hello, Juan, how are you?" I held out my hand and shook his. He wore glasses and mopped the sweat off his forehead with a handkerchief. The humidity was high, and so was the excitement in the airport, as people went in all directions with associates and families. Juan was dressed in the company's t-shirt and long khaki pants. "How was your flight?" he asked, with a Honduran accent. I assumed his accent was typical of the region. "Oh, it was interesting. I thought I would die in the Airbus, but no big deal." Juan, however, did not understand my sarcasm, so he didn't laugh. "I will take you to visitors' housing to put your bags, then we go to dinner," he said. "Thanks, that would be great." I had actually forgotten that I was hungry during the flight on the Airbus. Anyway, so what do you all think about the Airbus? Has anyone been on an Airbus before? Anybody? Let me see. Small jets are terrifying. Yeah, Michigan to Toronto, yes. There's some little ones out there. But I think the Airbus was worse because there was no AC. And it was huge and old and rattling. Right, so when we got to the preferred restaurant for the company's managers, we had a table waiting for us near the front door. The manager was expecting us. Juan ordered a bit of everything, as I requested, so I could taste the best of Honduran cuisine. It was delicious, especially the freshly fried fish. Anyone who entered the restaurant told our group, "Buen provecho." This is similar to bon appetit, or enjoy your meal. It was a sign of respect for our group. All the managers would answer, "Gracias." By the fourth "Buen provecho," I had given up and I focused on my meal. There was no way I was going to continue with the gracias for everybody who walked into the restaurant. The Honduran population was way too polite for me. And I don't think anybody noticed that I didn't greet them. Anyway, so that was just a bit amusing. Everybody who walked in the restaurant, "Buen provecho, gracias. Buen provecho, gracias." Very polite people, very polite. I guess I was not as polite. Now I have one more passage I want to read for you. I was very happy with my job, but I wanted to get European work experience, and I tried to convince the company to send me to their European branch, but it didn't work out. So I decided to find my own job in Europe, and I'll tell you how I did it. I took a flight to the UK. I had written some companies in advance, and I went to speak to different managers, but that didn't work out immediately. I returned to California from my UK visits dejected, but continued sending out applications. Then one morning I checked my email, and a message had come from a fresh produce company based in Dublin, Ireland. They had seen my application for a job in their UK office and decided to contact me for a role coming up in their Dublin office. That was very interesting. A fresh produce company in a city, not just in a city, but Dublin, fair city. Right away, the opportunity presented hope for European work experience. I answered, yes, I would be willing to interview for the role. We went back and forth to plan the ideal time when HR could call me for a telephone interview. Dublin was 8 hours ahead of California time, so I had to wake up early in the morning for them to conduct an afternoon interview. This was no problem for the opportunity of a lifetime. I was prepared to wake early. The call was arranged for 5 a.m. one fateful morning in April 2004 with HR and a technical manager. We spoke for almost an hour about my academic background and my work experience with the company in California. The technical manager was excited about my international experience and hoped I would fit into their business. The HR manager's voice was warm and friendly. Her accent was not typical of what you would hear on TV shows about Ireland. The roll of the R was less pronounced. Within a few days, an email came asking when I could fly to Ireland for a face-to-face interview. Well, I had to thank my lucky stars. They were serious about me, and my dream was coming true. I found every piece of information about their company and studied like a maniac. Reviewing the job description 1,000 times, I prepared a concise PowerPoint presentation about my skills, addressing each and every role in the job description. Practicing the presentation backwards and forwards and in front of a friend was critical. I applied for a day off and flew to Dublin, and I was going to be back after the interview. And my friend Joni was to keep Tiffany for me over that weekend. The Irish company paid for airline tickets and booked a room on Sunday night at a small hotel near St. Margaret's in Dublin. All I had to do was take a taxi from the airport to the hotel, and everything was coordinated. Now, at the interview, the company's technical manager collected me early from the hotel, and we drove through all those rural roads to get to the company. The interview went very well with the general manager that day. She asked dozens of questions and seemed to be quite impressed with my answers. At the end of almost 2 hours, we were done, and they went away for a brief discussion. When they returned, the owner said, "We want to hire you for the job." The general manager, the owner, everybody was excited. "We think you would be a very good fit, and we hope you will accept our offer." Those words reverberated in my ears like magic. "Hope you will accept our offer." She didn't know how many months I had been searching and waiting to hear those words. I was in a daze for 2 or 3 seconds before I could compose myself and not drool over the offer that they had presented in front of me. I asked if they would pay for my moving expenses since I was coming from the other side of the Atlantic. The response was, "Yes, of course." And we left it at that. The company was to send a written offer to me in a few days. All I had to do was relax and hold my breath for a few days and try not to bounce off the walls with joy. I was finally getting the opportunity I was looking for, a chance to work in Europe. Back in California, that evening I collected Tiffany, and Joni asked how the interview went, and I erred on the side of caution, saying I felt it went well, but I'd have to wait for written confirmation. It was best to do this. Celebrating with the world without a written contract was foolhardy. with a confirmation in hand, then I could start making announcements. As I fell asleep in my own bed that night, my mind screamed, "We're moving to Europe!" My job letter came on May 12th, and I had to plan a move across the Atlantic in 6 weeks. So what do you all think about that? I had 6 weeks to sell my house, sell my car, give notice at my job, 30 days notice. 6 weeks, because nobody was going to be holding a job for a foreigner for a long time. Anyway, if you want to find out how I did the move, you have to get your copy of Red Car Long Legs, Adventures in California and Beyond. The last chapter I talk about all the hoops I had to jump through to move from Westlake, California to Dublin, Ireland. And what a move it was. For those who know the book Escape from Ireland, you know what adventure awaited me. Well, thank you, everybody. That was the last reading, and I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you check out all my books. I'm going to put the link in the chat box. You can find my books at jennylyndjames.com/books. You can read about all the adventures. Jennylynd James /books. Please remember to like my Facebook page, and you can check out videos of all the past readings on my YouTube channel. If you search YouTube for Jennylynd James, you'd see all the past book readings. So we've read from each memoir twice, and just want to invite everybody on August 9th. I'm hoping to launch Mrs. Somebody, what she did for that ring. So Mrs. Somebody is my first novel, because remember all the other books were memoirs. So this one is fiction, but based on some true stories, okay? Lots of true stories, my stories and other people's stories. So, but it's a dating book, and I'd like you to help me spread the word. I'm going to be sending out some email reminders and Facebook posts about Mrs. Somebody. So coming up, the next book reading will be August 9th, Sunday, August 9th. So hope I can see everybody here and tell a few friends to join us for the book launch on August 9th. Thank you so much for coming to the book readings during this summer. I know you could be somewhere else and enjoying the sunshine, so I'm quite happy that you were able to join me for the book reading today. Anybody has any questions or comments? Put them in the chat box. Any questions or comments before we finish today? I was moving to another continent in 6 weeks. Yes, it was a leap of faith and quite a feat. Any other questions or comments? Put them in the chat box. Thank you so much for joining me today, everybody. And the recording from this session will be on my Facebook page, Jennylynd James Writer Facebook page. So for those who have missed the readings, you can also tell a friend, check out Jennylynd James Writer, my Facebook page, and you can see the recordings there or on YouTube. So thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for coming out this afternoon. Sincerely appreciate it. See you on August 9th. Bye.